Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. This webinar is being presented by the Clean Energy States Alliance, and the topic for today's webinar is NREL's Procurement Analysis Tool. And we have an excellent panel of guest speakers with us today, but before I pass it over to them, I'd like to go over a few webinar logistics. Today, attendees are in listen-only mode by default, but because this is a smaller group, the chat function is also enabled, and you may submit questions and comments via the chat during the webinar. And then we'll be saving 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the webinar for our Q&A. During this Q&A portion, you can continue to submit questions and comments via the chat, or you can use the raise hand function to join the queue for asking live questions. And when it's your turn to speak, your microphone will be enabled so you can ask your question verbally. Automated captions are available. Speakers' bios will be made available in the chat as they are being introduced. And finally, this webinar is being recorded. We will email you a webinar recording within 48 hours, and it will also be posted on CESA's website at cesa.org/webinars. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to our host for today, my colleague Warren Leon.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm Executive Director of CESA, and the CESA, or the Clean Energy States Alliance, is a national nonprofit organization. We are composed primarily of public agencies and organizations that are working together to advance clean energy. We have members in 21 states. And if you look at the next page, you can see a list of all our members here, their logos on this screen. We do a lot of information sharing among them. We identify best practices. We do group projects, all to help them advance clean energy policies and effective policies for the future. If we can go to the next slide. This webinar is happening under the auspices of our Federal Initiatives Project. And what we do with that project is to help U.S. states learn about what's going on in Washington and exchange information that helps them advance energy deployment in their state. If you want to get on our mailing list for our weekly newsletter for state officials, which talks about federal energy developments, write to us at cesa@cesa.org, and we'll add you to that mailing list. Let's go to the next slide. And today, we're going to learn about a very useful tool for states, and we're doing it in a context which will give you opportunity to ask questions of folks who could be very helpful to you. We're going to have two speakers today from the National Renewable Energy Lab. You can, in the chat, see their bios. Sushmita Jena is going to be the lead speaker, and Jeff Cook is going to help her during the Q&A. So let me turn it over to Sushmita. Thank you.
Thanks, Warren. It's great to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. The next slide, please. Okay, we'll start with a bit of background of Pat and introduce Pat, and then we'll go on to the questions it can answer and what it can do for this group of people. So introducing Procurement Analysis Tool, or PAT for short, that's what we call it, PAT. This is a free web-based platform designed to help organizations like yours untangle the world of offsite energy procurement options. So the questions: what can PAT really do? What can you ask PAT to do? Here are some of the big questions on the right of your screen. It helps answer what energy procurement options are out there for my location. That's something that PAT can tell you by your location or by where you want to site your load. How do these choices line up with what I want to achieve? Based on your goals, it can actually line up the choices, and how do they actually stack up against different criteria? That's something that Pat can help you understand. How does the value of different energy technologies, resources, shift across regions. So you can do a regional comparison on where you want to site versus what the energy really costs in that particular region, for example. And importantly, how do the cost and impacts really stack up? That's also some analysis that you can do with PAT. Now, if you're curious, you can check out PAT yourself at www.pat.nrel.gov. And that's either use the QR code here on the screen, on the left of the screen, or just type pat.nrel.gov. And it's a live tool. You can create your own account and you'll be able to use it as we speak. So as I'm talking, you can speak, you can really use it. Or when I'm doing the demo, you can also log in and use PAT right away. The next slide, please. Okay, setting up PAT, the key inputs and outputs here. We will talk a little bit about what goes into PAT and what comes out of PAT, really. So PAT, this PAT walks you through your energy procurement planning step by step. In this, on the right of the screen, let's start with the right of the screen here, procurement options. So as you get started, PAT shows you what's available in your utility service territory. So green tariffs, competitive suppliers, green pricing, unbundled renewable energy certificates, community solar or PPA. Based on your location and preference, it can tell you what kind of procurement options exist. So think of procurement options as supply mechanisms, what exists in your area. That's something that PAT can tell you. What load aggregation groups, so on the left of the screen you're seeing now, on the load aggregation groups, so you can group your electric load by region. That's one of the inputs of PAT. So left is the input and right is the output here. And it can also tell you how to really plug these things. So just plug in the things with annual usage, address, and which utility you use. Then on, again, user preferences, that's something that Pat can help you with. We'll go more over it. That's why I'm quickly just going over these slides here. So Pat asks you a few questions about price certainty, contract experience, your risk tolerance, location, and so on to tailor the results. And the second output of PAT here is the resource regions, which is on the right of the screen here. The platform helps you optimize resource choices, whether you care most about cost, emissions, grid value, or a mix of that, or all of those things. The next slide, please. So briefly, we're calling this under the hood, what goes behind PAT, what's happening. That's what this slide is all about for anyone who wants to really understand how PAT really optimizes these results. And here we use the energy supply curve. So PAT uses detailed supply curve modeling for all US grid balancing regions, factoring in the cost, operations, and emissions all the way through 2050. We also use our flagship annual technology baseline. For those of you who have used it, it's one of the big data sets that we have. It's called the ATB, or the Annual Technology Baseline. It pulls its latest energy and NREL Tech designs, cost info, and uses the system advisory model, or SAM, for things like battery dispatch. So all comparisons are run over a 25-year life of the project, giving you a clear long-term picture, including grid value and emissions alongside the cost of the project itself. There's a lot to really unpack here. I'm not going to spend more time on what's behind PAT. I want to spend some more time on how to use for this group of people. So next slide, please. Okay, who does it help? Like, PAT obviously can analyze multiple customer use cases like you are seeing here. It's for all kinds of energy buyers and energy users or decision makers. Commercial and industrial users can analyze the options for all their US sites, their loads in different locations. Local government, and agencies or AHJs can scope out city or regional operations for what you want to cite or where you want to cite. Campuses, colleges, and universities get tailored analysis for both academic and residential energy needs. Utilities and other providers can use PAT to gauge program interest if that's what they're interested in. And it also can support regulators and commissions might for market review and planning purposes. I think that's how we see this tool. I mean, it's for multiple sets of users. The next slide, please. Okay, a little bit about challenges, and then this is my last slide. We'll then jump into the demo itself. So the key procurement challenges and solutions. Let's be real, like the energy procurement process is obviously super complex. There are big regional differences, competing priorities, ever-changing demands, and different tech options. So what can Pat really do to resolve some of these things? Tailoring recommendations to your geography, utility, and goals. That's something Pat can do through a few simple inputs you will see when we do the demo itself. Comparing technologies by cost or emissions or grid value meaning the price of electricity on that particular grid. Allowing you to analyze entire facility groups at once. That's also something that Pat is able to do at this point. Making data entry simple and intuitive. You will see that there are some very basic inputs. It's a 3-step process, and I'll take you through all of that. Helping you pinpoint the best fit solutions for your needs. So that's what Pat is all about. And with that, the next slide. So here in the next slide, you are seeing the QR code. Please use it to log into Pat, and also the website is mentioned here. So this is where we will switch to a live demonstration of Pat, and I'll take you through everything from creating your first scenarios to seeing the actionable procurement recommendations that we have. Just a heads up, I'm trying to switch screen here.
You're on, we see that.
Okay, great. Great. Okay. Let's start here. So this, if you are seeing my screen, you should be seeing the homepage of PAT. So the procurement analysis tool, this is what the homepage looks like. I have logged in already, and that's why you are seeing the page after I log in. However, if you are not logged in, then you will see all the other options other than the FAQs. That's the only thing that is not visible to people who are not logged in on the home screen. Otherwise, all the options are available. So if you scroll down, the same information that I gave just now about who this tool is for, how really, empower your energy goals and what kind of options are available, plus the key features, all of that is available to you as a recap of the information that I just provided. So with your get started here, I will, yeah, it takes me straight to the scenario pages, but I want to spend a second here. So before we go to the scenarios, if I come back to the home page here, I am logged in. You can create your own user user ID and password using either your email or you can create some other login as well, as in you can have a different username other than your email as well. And once you do that, you are completely logged in here. Then we go to the scenarios. Either you can do it from get started, you can do it from right here at the bottom. If you see there is a get started button, or you can just press on scenarios. This is where Pat really starts, and you will start seeing all the options and all the scenarios that you can create here. I obviously test a lot, and that's why I've created a bunch of scenarios here. But if you were to create a new scenario, this is where you will start. It says create new scenario. You click here, and you will have to enter basic information about the name, provide a unique name so that you can identify it yourself. You can have multiple scenarios, obviously, like I have created, but you can just make a unique identifier here so that you can keep coming back to the scenario and finding out information about what options are available. The second, of course, is your goal. Like what is your energy goal here, excluding any current on-site renewables or off-site agreements that you already have. That is, how much energy do you want to procure through this process? That's the goal that you want to put here. Any value between 0 to 100% is fine. You can say 100, you can say 50, you can say 20, or any such. And you can always update it, and the whole scenario will update itself. Now, the one thing to remember is these are options, or these are energy projects that you will procure in the future. These are not ready-made energy projects out there which you can procure from now. So it is an energy planning tool. It starts here, but it doesn't. I mean, this is where you start your energy scenario planning. That's what I want to emphasize here. And a little bit on this line here that you are seeing at the top of the screen. It starts with basic info and ends with results. This is how simple PAT is. There are 3 steps. That's the basic info, locations, and filters. These are the 3 input pages here. And the next 3, that is procurement, resource regions, and results, are basically the output pages. So 3 input pages and 3 output pages, pretty symmetrical out there. And the other thing to remember is if you are looking for on-site options or any other type of analysis other than energy planning procurement, then I think for on-site options, we ask you to go to REOPT, NREL's REOPT, the Renewable Energy Optimization Tool, or SAM, the System Advisory Model. Those are good tools for on-site options or doing analysis on the on-site options. However, for off-site options, this is where we start. For this particular discussion, I have created a scenario, and I'd like to take you through that scenario here. Okay. The scenario that I am taking you through is called NREL New. This is how I have labeled it. I want to go 80% of the energy is the analysis that I'm looking for. So total load that I provide out of that 80% is how much I want to procure from this procurement process or this analysis. That's the support that I need. Once I do that, I save and continue. And then it takes me to the second page. So this is the second input page of the tool. It's called the locations page. And here, basically what you will create is load aggregation groups. We call it load aggregation groups. Sometimes we call it lag. Now, in the load aggregation groups, first of all, what are they? So here, PAT allows you to create group facilities by region or energy use. And we color code them so that you understand or see on the map how that analysis really runs, either by region, by energy use, or how big or small they are, whether they are owned versus franchisee, all kinds of, so any kind of grouping that you want to create for the analysis, you're able to create that. And the unit of analysis is the load aggregation group. And that's why it's important to see multiple iterations of that so that you see what are the best options that you have. So here, for example, I have created 2, NREL DC. We have a DC office, and and all of this information is made up. All of this data is made up. This is just for the purpose of this presentation that we have created. This is not a real load or any of that. So 2 load aggregation groups I've created, and clearly this is by geography. You can see NREL DC is one of the loads here, and NREL Colorado is the second one. And these are the 2 groups. So if I were to add a new group to this, I would click on this Add Group button, call it, I will have a new name for it, and I would just add the group. I'm not going to do it right now because I've carefully created this scenario for us to see all the different types of options. And then once you enter the load aggregation group, you have to add at least 1 facility so that the analysis can run. So within the group, you need to actually add a facility. And why that is important is because that's where you tell the system or the tool what is your utility service territory, which address you want to site your projects in. and what is your annual load. These are the three important information that you actually provide the system through that. So once again, as a recap, two load aggregation groups. Within the load aggregation groups, you have to create at least one facility name. You can create 100, but at least one is what's required. So in this case, I have one facility inside NREL DC. It's called NREL DC campus here. And within the NREL Colorado one, I have created two facilities. That's the NREL Flatiron campus and the NREL Golden campus, two of them. Let's go into one of them and see what's going on. Or yeah, let's go into that, and then I'll also show you how to add a facility. So once I have created this already, but if you were to create this on your own, you will click on this button, which says add facility in this group, and it gives you an empty a decker, and that's where you will start entering the information. I have already created this. I'm just going to go over this one for this presentation today. Here, you are saying NREL, I'm calling it NREL DC campus. I have put my load as 500,000 megawatt hours. This is the facility location. This is the location I gave, and I selected the load serving entity or the utility in this case. Now, the important thing to remember here is that in the vertically integrated markets or the markets that are not restructured yet, and there's just one let's say entity, a load serving entity that is serving you, the moment you enter the address, it selects the option for you. It selects the load serving entity already for you because there is just one option. However, in DC, we're in a restructured market here. And so it gives me all the options that we have on different kinds of load serving entity along with the default utility, if that's that's the place that you want to cite. And I have selected Pepco here. I add the facility, and that's how this option is available to see in this one. So in NREL DC, I have added one facility, and that facility has all of this information. Most of this information, the megawatt hour is obviously made up. All of the other information is correct here. Similarly, for Colorado, I did the same. I did that twice over. So I added two different facilities within the load aggregation group of NREL Colorado. And here I've named it NREL Flatiron Campus. 1,000,000 megawatt hours is the load here. And I've added the address for that. I've also selected the load serving entity. And for NREL Golden, I've done the same thing. So this is where I have added all the load aggregation groups and facilities. Here, there is a map. And within the map, if I blow it up, I think I'll go out of the screen and you will not be able to see. So I'll just try to show it here. So within this, you are seeing, within this map, there are these two pins here, and it shows the NREL Colorado options. That is, one of them is Flatiron, the other one is Golden, pretty close by, and that's why you're seeing them as overlapping pin. However, there are two pins I can assure you there. If I drag it here to the East Coast, you will see one pin here, which shows your NREL DC campus. So one of the pins. So you will constantly have this aid, this visual aid, as you go in this analysis process. That's something that I wanted to just highlight. So I'm closing the map here once again. So we are on the second step. It says here the second step of this process. So first step was creating a scenario. The second one is the load aggregation group. Then I save and continue. I go to the last filters option or the procurement option here. And this is my last input page. And here is where we are asking you a series of questions, 6 questions. And we ask these questions so that we can fine tune the options that we are showing to you based on your preference, based on your experience, based on your goals, and so on. So this is one more chance that users have to really fine tune the procurement options that they are seeing for their utility service territory, not just everything that's available, but everything that is that aligns with how they see their organization, how they see their experience, and so on. The first question here is energy procurement contracting. So it says, do you have or are you willing to acquire significant energy and financial transaction experience needed to carry out a virtual power purchase agreement? We all know virtual power purchase agreements can be complicated. They are sophisticated tools. There is a certain amount of, I think, sophistication that is required, contracting experience that is required to do some of these power purchase agreements. And if I say yes to that, some options are not available to me. And if I say no to that, so you will see that it will drop different types of options that are not available to me. So I'm not showing Colorado here. I'm trying to show, let's say, DC. So if I say yes here, then power purchase agreement is available to me. However, if I say no, then the power purchase agreement is not available to me because I am saying that I do not want to take that risk. I don't have contracting experience. I'm not willing to invest in that kind of experience for my organization. So it just drops it. For now, I'm just saying yes so that we see the full suite of options. However, if you can obviously at any point you can change it. And also for the users, why do we ask this question? What's the motive behind asking that question? All of that information is available to you here when you click why do we ask that question, how this affects the results. So you have this information handy, and what the yes or no does. You are at any point able to see that for yourself. The second question here is, are you willing to take on the financial risk associated with energy procurement option? Again, similarly, why do we ask? That information is available to you here. If you say yes, you don't see certain options. If you say no, then you further are not able to see PPAs and those kind of options. So financial questions are these. There is one more here. This is the third question, which is also about financial. Do you only want to see options with long-term price certainty or not? Yes, no, unsure. You can say any of those. And with each of them, the options will keep adding or they will drop off. That does not mean you are not able to go and select some of these options, see them for yourself. None of that. It's just that based on what you are telling us, we think that these procurement options may not be the best at this point. That's all that the tool is doing. You can obviously overrule that and you can add all the options to see for analysis, for review, any of that. That's possible. The next one here is about environmental concerns, like do you wish to own the renewable energy credit certificates or not? If you say yes, we obviously say that yes, you're buying indeed renewable energy. If you say no, there are other options that unbundled RECs and such options get dropped. A few other options as well. On the grid impact question here, we ask you, do you want to prioritize cost, emissions reduction, or grid value, or a combination of all three? Here we say that so that the options that you really care for, let's say all you care for is cost at this point, then you can select cost, and the procurement options that they show, the resource regions that we see, those really change. And it tells you where you want to site, and all of those questions will come eventually, but it will prioritize based on the cost. If you say grid value, then it's going to prioritize that, emissions, or a combination of all of that. These are the four options. Again, you can change this at any point. So you can come back to this page. There are multiple pages, and each page you have the option to change it and toggle between one or two and see what options get dropped and what options get added. And this is the last of the questions. The main question here is about geography. Do you have a preference on where the project is located? If you say no to this question, then there are no further questions. There's just one about the balancing authorities. However, if you say yes, there are a couple of follow-up questions like site renewable project in the same state as at least one facility in the group. I'm saying no. If you say yes, then the eventual procurement, the resource regions that you see will be in the same location as your load is. If you say no to this question, then you are just open to buying power from anywhere in the US. That's the basic assumption here. Again, all of this information is available to you on why we're asking this question. And also we have two balancing authorities that we have maps for, and that's how we have really overlaid the maps to have maximum impact. And you can look up the NREL maps or the NERC maps, either of the balancing authority. NREL maps come from the Reeds study and the Reeds model. And so you are able to see either of this. I'm just leaving these questions as is, and then I go to the next page, that is the procurements page. So this is all the inputs that you had: questions, creating the load aggregation group, and the scenario. These are the 3 pages of inputs. Now I'm moving to the 4th page, which is where the outputs really start. This is the procurement options, your procurement options that you have based on the questions you answered and the inputs that you gave us. So 2 of these load aggregation groups are here. One is NREL Colorado. I can click on NREL DC and quickly move to NREL DC. So all your load aggregation groups will keep adding here as many as you create. I've created 2 here. And here are all the procurement options that we are recommending based on your options that you selected and the questions, the way you answered the questions. And we give you procurement options. What does this really mean? What kind of project these are? Oh, sorry, what kind of procurement options these are? And where we have information about pricing, about websites, about links to really connect to all of that information is also available on the right of the screen. So those are the options that you will see. So view more details at the very bottom here for power purchase agreement, where we have some more information which cannot fit in that page. We take you to a new page and we are able to give some more pricing information here. So back to the procurement page. This is where, like I was telling, the first page of outputs. So all the options that you have here are already added. I was just talking about how you can keep bringing back options that we have unselected because of the way you've answered the questions. You just have to select it and it gets added to your analysis. That's as simple as that. Right now, it is just not available to you because of the way you answered the question. Similarly, for NREL Colorado and NREL DC, all the options are here. I am going to save and continue here. This is the second page, step 5, like you can see, but second page of the results itself. It's called the resource regions. So Pat, like it says here, has pre-selected resource regions that align with your scenario across the US, your goals, and your preferences. You can use this table here to see all the options that are available to you. And at the very top, again, these 2 bars are the load aggregation groups. You can go back and forth between them. Here we are seeing the NREL Colorado summary. It tells me that my renewable energy goal is met based on the options that are available in my selected territory. How much of energy generation potential is available over here, and like I was talking about, how you can toggle between cost, emissions reduction, and grid value. And it pre-selects these 3 options based on the load that I have and that I need cost savings. Cost savings is what I want to prioritize. And that's why it gives me all these options. All 3 of them are wind options here. And I'm going to open the map quickly, and you will see that it is giving me all the wind options here within the state of Colorado and adjacent states. That's what it looks like on the map itself. And if I move here to DC, I'm not seeing those options because I've not clicked on those options at this point. That's why I'm not seeing that. Let's go back to Colorado here. This is what the map really is able to do. Also, for some reason, if I do not want these options, I'm always able to uncheck them, and I'm able to check other options. And I can move on in the same way. On emissions, let's say I want to say emissions reduction is what I want to really prioritize. It is giving me options, solar options, And I have to select few of the options to see whether my goal is met or not. So once I clicked on both of them, here you are seeing that it says your goal is exceeded already. So it's basically asking me to unselect the options. So emissions reduction is one such option. Similarly, for grid value, again, I've unselected this. Here it says, because none of this is selected, it says energy goal not met. So I have to select one of them, let's say, and it says goal is met. And based on grid value, I'm able to select solar option. Or I can do a combination of all of these three. I want to prioritize all of them equally. And I will click on one of them and it says my renewable energy goal is met already. So that's everything on this page. So the first result that we saw was on the procurement options, what options exist, and the second is on the resource regions. Now we go to the results page. You can go from the bottom here, and you can also go, you can click on the results and it shows you. So this is the last page of the results. It is a consolidation of everything that you saw so far, and you can also change things from here itself, including the map or the view locations or the different procurement options that are available or the different resource regions that are available. All of that is available to you to see in one quick view here. Here on NREL Colorado, it says that the renewable energy goal is met because I've selected adequate options. Here it says the goal is not met because I have not selected all the options that were available to me. So all of those things that you want to really know about what has happened with the entire analysis, all of that is available here. Again, as a reminder, this is not a marketplace of projects, ready projects that are available that you can go and buy from. This is the first step of this analysis. This is where what PAT did, what it does not do. We want to highlight all of that. There are steps that you have to take as an energy buyer after you run this analysis. So after you analyze the procurement options, that's the first step. Then you have to engage key stakeholders, negotiate and develop the project that you are thinking about, whether it's with your other partners, with your utilities, depending on where you are located and what options are available to you. And you will obviously go through the whole RFI, RFP process if you are going for a PPA or so on and so forth. So we want to emphasize that it is an energy planning tool. It starts here, but there are other steps that you have to really take to pursue this whole journey. So it's the beginning step, not the very end. I believe that's everything that I had for this presentation. I guess we are open to questions at this point.
Hey, thanks very much, Sushmita. And we will go to questions. And if folks have questions, please raise your hand and you could ask them or put them in the chat. Let me start with a couple questions. One is, what's the advantage of, in your scenario, putting both the NREL DC facilities and the NREL Colorado facilities into the same scenario as opposed to making those two different scenarios?
I can start. Jeff, please add whenever you need to. You're right. That's the flexibility that the tool provides. There is the reason I wanted to do this as one scenario is because I have other multiple scenarios that I have created. I have another situation where I have split them into two different scenarios and ran the analysis. So two different scenarios, one load aggregation group each, and I have run the analysis based on that as well. It gives me slightly different options. Then actually when I bring in both of these scenarios and create just one compact scenario and bring in two load aggregation groups. The advantage I would say is that if you have let's say, multiple facilities, let's say 10, 20, 30 facilities. Sometimes we have ran analysis for up to 75 facilities within one load aggregation group. Creating 75 scenarios and comparing them apple to apple becomes a task. It's hard. As compared to, let's say, we have grouped them together under different load aggregation groups. So one scenario, multiple load aggregation groups, and within the load aggregation groups, we have grouped them as small facilities versus large facilities, small load, large load, regional loads like Mid-Atlantic versus West versus Texas. I think that is the advantage of the tool. But if you have a fewer facilities, like you very rightly pointed, in this case, I could have created two different scenarios for them, and I could see all the options.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Jay Birkin asks, in grid value, will it analyze the offset of the generation on the substation, transmission, and outside need for power generation?
Yeah, I saw that one, Sushmita, so I can start us off with that question. Ultimately, what we're looking at with the grid value is we are looking at NREL's national modeling of generation revenue across the country, and that is based at what is happening at the grid in any given place. So what is the capacity revenue that you might generate from a particular site or from a particular energy resource, given the other constraints you're seeing on the transmission grid overall. We're basing this on national modeling of the grid. We do this by balancing authority, so it's not just a national structure just applied indiscriminately across the country, but it is still based on modeled results. So the impact of a particular project on a feeder in a particular area is going to be dependent on what that project is, what types of, how it's interconnected to the grid, how it operates, whether there's storage, et cetera. So there's a lot of underlying variables that are associated with any given project. What Pat is trying to do is to give you illustrative information about a theoretical project that may be connected in this resource region of the country. What potential impact or grid value might that one generate, understanding all of those other unknowns. So it is not going to give you clear distinctions of what's happening at the feeder at this particular node of the grid. Rather, it's giving you a sense of comparing one area in terms of grid value to another one. So I just wanted to make sure what folks left this conversation with is that Pat is a starting point to give you a sense of comparative value that we see from a modeling perspective. But if you're looking at specific projects, again, NREL and Pat are not giving you specific projects. But if you're looking at a PPA request or an RFP response that has a specific project in it, there's going to be more details there that you could evaluate with like a third-party consultant or your own energy market staff to evaluate. And yeah, Sushmita, I'm not sure if you'd add anything to that.
No, pretty much. I think you covered it, Jeff. Thanks.
Okay, and well, Jay had a follow-up question. Asked, does that include any cost-saving value?
So if you're asking about cost-saving value in the extent that you're going to offset the need for transmission or additional generation because you're doing on-site generation, that's typically when you're thinking about offsetting the need for more transmission equipment. If you're talking about that, that's really behind the meter, and this is utility scale where you're adding infrastructure to the grid, which would ultimately have additional value in it. But if we are, in terms of cost savings, we are both looking at how much revenue might you get on the grid compared to your install cost, so you can see which one might be the most cost-effective resource region based again on that procurement. So that cost-saving element is in there, but we're not. It's not specific to exactly what's happening in a distribution feeder.
Okay, good. And Anne-Marie Esposito asks, do the renewable energy options change depending on which procurement option you select?
They do not typically. So in the context of the tool now, we're looking at wind, solar, and storage. And so most of the procurement options in there are applicable to those technologies. We are looking to expand the tool to other things like geothermal, pumped hydro storage, natural gas, et cetera, in which case some procurement options may no longer be available depending on which technology you're procuring. But typically, for the ones that are in there, procurement options apply to either technology you're procuring. And then where the projects vary is based on your geographic considerations and cost, grid value, and emissions. So in some scenarios, you might see all solar and storage projects show up. In another scenario, you might see wind projects show up. And that could just be the nature of the geography and the filter criteria that you've set. But we are not excluding technologies based on procurement options at this point.
Okay. And Daniel Mullers Hernandez asks, where do you get the list of projects that ends up populating the results? Where do you derive those from?
Yeah, really good question. And this is where, and the PAT tool is based on the foundation of NREL's first-in-class modeling suite. And so ultimately, we are relying on REV, which is one of our renewable energy potential models and geospatial analysis tools. Functionally, what that product does is it evaluates all of the resource potential for all technologies across the country, and then it generates supply curves at different price points for those technologies by resource region. And then NREL runs our grid modeling through REEDS, Plexos, and other modeling tools to determine what is the grid going to look like through 2050, how much generation is the grid going to need, and what are grid actors going to rationally procure to meet whatever load demand growth they're asking for. Then we go to the supply curves from REV, and we take from those basically those same resource regions, the supply curves are what are the basis for the resource regions you heard Sushmita talk about earlier, but it pulls from those supply curves and resource regions to then meet grid demand. Then what PAT does is says, okay, the grid is going to procure all this stuff. What is remaining in those supply curves across the country that could be considered additive from a corporate customer's perspective if they're trying to do more procurement of energy than they might get from the grid otherwise. And so then we pull from those remaining supply curves that are, again, our foundational in REV and our annual technology baseline and Plexos and all of our other modeling tools that use the same set of resources. And so it's from that basis that we're evaluating install costs across the country and comparing those similar to the grid value and emissions impacts that you're going to have based on what the grid looks like today and what it will look like tomorrow or over the course of the next 25 years. And there's an added question about RECs and tax credits in there. We do evaluate potential tax credits in the context of our installation costs, and that's pulled from the annual technology baseline. But the annual technology baseline actually does it in both ways, with tax incentives and without tax incentives. So you can actually see both supply curves from that perspective. Sushmita and I will have to double check on which supply curve we're using. I suspect it's the one without the tax incentives, but we'll have to double check that. Either way, as those things evolve and change over time, the tool is updated annually to reflect those costs as employed in all our other models.
So that gets at a question about timing of the results. If somebody's, sort of thinking of procuring electricity at some point in the future, the results you're given are just if they were going out now as opposed to a year from now or 2 years from now. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less. So if today is step one, you're probably not going to get projects in the ground for some period of time, 2 years or more, depending on which project you're looking at or where you are in the RFP process. So this is really just a step one for you to get a sense of what's out there. Where are the places you might be able to pursue? And some resource regions have more potential than others. And so even if some of that gets procured in the next year or two and you're really looking 5 years out, there's probably enough potential there anyway that you can still use the model results today as helpful for your planning into the future. But it really is sort of a step one today. What does today look like, right, for my procurement? And then, 5 years down the line, it'll look different as the grid and technologies evolve. And that's a set of different questions.
Great. And we only have a few minutes left. I want to ask both of you if there's anything you want to say to folks that you haven't had a chance to say up till now.
Yeah, and there was a follow-up question, so I'll actually answer that one. That the PAT tool is also forward-looking in the extent you're looking at new load, right? So if you're like data centers are very hot right now, and there's a lot of data center interest. You can use PAT to think about, okay, well, I think there's going to be some new sites here, and here, and so what kinds of resources might be available near those locations, or what procurement options might exist to procure power for sites that don't yet exist. If you're a new load, you have more opportunity to negotiate with a utility or an energy service provider for what your energy might be than what is reflected in the tool itself, but it's still a great starting point to evaluate that. So I think I'll end by saying that it can both look at new load that you might be considering or might be being considered in your region or state, just the same as you can do it for existing load. But I'll pass it to Sushmita, should she have other thoughts.
Yeah, pretty much. I think the one thing, if you want to take away, is that this is a starter tool for you. You are able to analyze multiple scenarios, like anything that's in your head, and you think that, oh, we're buying here versus there or somewhere else. How does the cost really stack up? I am trying to prioritize emissions based on that. What is the cost looking like? All of those options you are able to really analyze here. And that's why I think you should be trying the tool for yourself, entering all of your information. Your information, of course, is secure. And so you should be really trying the tool. That's the only message from us, I guess.
Hey, great. Well, I hope folks have gotten the sense that this tool has a lot of flexibility. And on top of that, Sushmita and Jeff are both very knowledgeable, willing to answer questions, very approachable. And so really, please do try it out and ask NREL if you have questions or need help with it. So thanks very much for joining us today. And we're sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but we hope you'll use this tool. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.